Grab your coffee and kick up your feet. It is time for Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Caroline, we got to welcome some new people in. People might be watching us today on the Yahoo Sports Network. We're on fast services today. It's an exciting day for the show.
It's a very exciting day for the show and all of our wonderful producers extraordinaire and everybody behind the scenes who have made this all possible. We get to do the fun stuff. We get to do the easy stuff. We get to show up and talk to each other. But everybody who put in all of the work, the blood, the sweat, and the tears to make this all possible, shout out to them. We are available on yahoosports.tv, the fast channels, and of course, always YouTube as well. So if you're watching on YouTube, check us out on some of the other platforms over the next few days. Of course, we are here every single morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern time.
All right, Carolyn, let's start like we always do. It's time for 3 points, my friend. What is on your mind?
Oh, Fitzy, I got a lot on my mind, and I am sending out my deepest condolences to Indiana Fever fans everywhere because that team and that fan base just continues to get bitten by the injury bug. And the latest Fever guard, Sophie Cunningham, will be out for the remainder of the season due to a knee injury. So she was escorted off the court in the Fever's win over the Connecticut Sun on Sunday with what looked like a knee injury. She was grabbing at that knee, and it was confirmed after an MRI yesterday that she will be out for the remainder of the season. And the Fever cannot catch a break. I mean, Caitlin Clark hasn't played in over a month with a groin injury. Sydney Colson and Arian McDonald are also out for the remainder of the season. We learned that just a couple of weeks ago. And now Sophie Cunningham. The Fever don't have a single healthy point guard. And this team revolves around the point guard because it revolves around Caitlin Clark. So they don't have a single healthy point guard. And after all of the moves that they made this past offseason, bringing in Sophie Cunningham, bringing in Natasha Howard and DeWanna Bonner, bringing in veteran experience to this team was a clear indication that the Fever were going for it. The Fever were trying to push all of their chips into the middle for a championship. But now it's hard to see this team making a championship run, much less even making the playoffs at this point with how much they've been bitten by the injury bug. But I will say this, if you're one of those people that is saying, Caitlin Clark should come back because they've been injured so much, I have to say I vehemently disagree with you because it would be the worst possible move for the Fever to rush Caitlin Clark back from injury just because they're injured the rest of the roster. Cut your losses, see how many games you can win throughout the rest of the season. If you make the playoffs, great. Come back better next year.
All eyes will be on the Fever next year because certainly as they get healthy, they will be one of the better teams in the W. Love that. All right. Let me get you what's on my mind. And you know that we are close to the beginning of college football season when we have starters being named every day. It just feels like a daily tradition. And now we know who's going to be starting at the quarterback position for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. That's C.J. Carr. And C.J. Carr should be noted as the grandson of longtime Michigan head coach Lloyd Carr. A lot of questions about, longtime Michigan head coach grandson going to Notre Dame, a huge rival. But more importantly for Notre Dame, this is a team that, much like most of the top 10, has questions at the quarterback position. That is one of the themes we haven't paid enough attention to coming into this year in college football. Frankly, if you start going up and down the list of the top 5, 6, 7 teams in the country, it's harder to find teams that don't have questions at the quarterback position than that do. And there won't be a lot of wiggle room for Carr once he is behind center starting the season for Notre Dame. Let's keep in mind that he starts at number 10, Miami. Now, Miami, we'll see how good they are. But going down into the swampiness of Miami early in the season is always a conditioning test. And then no break right after that. They get Texas A&M at home. That's 2 marquee matchups in a schedule that really only has maybe 3. So there's very little grace period here for the redshirt freshman to go out and get this opportunity. Notre Dame, he's played 1 game so far in his career. He will step into a team that has national championship aspirations, and all eyes will be on what he can do. Also, I just wonder how many car puns are going to be coming from Notre Dame fans everywhere. Drive the car, park the car, stall the car. All of these things are going to be happening all year, and we're in for all of it as we get ready for college football season. Which, speaking of quarterbacks, Caroline Fenton, brings me to our top point of the day. I don't know if you heard, there's a new quarterback in the Indianapolis Colts ecosystem that will be our starter. Daniel Jones has beaten out Anthony Richardson for the job. And this is one of those moments that I frankly, I saw coming, but this is not a moment that is without controversy.
Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, Daniel Jones. Just kidding. Mount Rushmore in Indianapolis. I'm with you that this was the right decision, that I expected this decision, but just because it's the right decision doesn't mean I have to like it. And just because it's the right decision doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily end up being a good decision for the Indianapolis Colts, because you're in a really scary place as a franchise when your best option in the quarterback room is Daniel Jones. Look, no disrespect to Daniel Jones, but he is what he is. He's not going to be a guy that's going to march you to the playoffs. He's not going to be a guy that can single-handedly win games for you. In fact, he's a guy that's probably going to lose a couple of games for you. That's what we've learned about Daniel Jones so far in his career. And I just have to wonder if it's like, how did we get here in Indianapolis? Obviously, you have Peyton Manning, and then when he went through the neck surgery, they were so bad that they were able to land Andrew Luck. And no pun intended, as we're going on the theme of puns for quarterbacks on today's show so far. They were just lucky that that happened. And so then Andrew Luck brought them into this new era of the Indianapolis Colts. But ever since then, it's been a turnstile at the quarterback position. It's been Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan and Jacoby Brissett and Phillip Rivers. And what in the world is the plan in Indianapolis? I can be okay with being bad as long as you have a plan. If Daniel Jones is your best plan in Indianapolis, I can't really trust in that vision.
I see. You're right. This isn't a good decision. This is a great decision. I'm all in on this. I think
Well,
this was the
great
right thing.
decision.
This is a great decision. This is great. Look, Anthony Richardson is just not a starting quarterback in the NFL. It's not Anthony Richardson's fault that he was overdrafted, but he was overdrafted. At the end of the day, even when I was covering the draft that year and he was drafted, we all looked around and thought, man, I don't know. I know we saw great athletic moments from Anthony Richardson, and we want to turn that into great quarterbacking, but that was never the case for Anthony Richardson. He had a couple of huge plays at Florida that we all fell in love with, but there wasn't a body of work that gave any indication that he was actually deserving of being a top pick in the first round. What everybody kept saying is you're drafting for traits, and we need to develop traits. Well, what if the player doesn't want to be part of that development? He's had 3 years in this offense, and he couldn't beat out Daniel Jones, who's been in it for about 30 seconds. He should have control. He hasn't had to deal with different coordinators, different head coaches, different calling, different languages. He hasn't had to deal with any of that. All he's had to do is master the system in front of him, and he simply hasn't done that. And I'm not just talking about in games. I'm talking about in practice, because Shane Steichen said this offseason that the decision would be based on consistency, which means they're looking at everything day in and day out. And I see the tweet there that talks about his age. Okay, he's young. That's fine. He's had 3 years. How many players in the NFL get 3 years in the same offense to try and figure it out? And he's gotten beaten out every single time that somebody could beat him out. At some point, can't we just accept that maybe Anthony Richardson isn't all that good? Like, we keep talking about this like they blew it with Anthony Richardson. What if he, A, didn't do the things he needed to do? And what if he, B, even if he did, just isn't good enough? Like, Daniel Jones today is a better quarterback. So you play your better players when you start going into a season.
And I'm with you there that right now, Daniel Jones gives you a better chance to win football games than Anthony Richardson. I wholeheartedly believe that. And obviously the Colts do too, because Shane Steichen, the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, already said that Daniel Jones is going to be the starter for the entirety of the season. He's not opening the door for any sort of opportunity or growth or development for Anthony Richardson. So yes, Daniel Jones does give you the better opportunity to win right now. But you say Anthony Richardson was overdrafted. That could be true. But was he overdrafted or was he underdeveloped? Was he rushed? Was he mismanaged by the Indianapolis Colts organization? Now, at this point, that's all kind of, it's all history. Like, we're past that. That Anthony Richardson, at this point, I think, has already been ruined by the Colts. They rushed him. He went too early. He started 13 games in Florida. He came out and he was too young. He wasn't ready. Now, again, we're past that. That's water under the bridge at this point. The Colts have done what the Colts have done, but I can't wholeheartedly believe that this is, Anthony Richardson was just given chance after chance after chance after chance when I believe he was mismanaged, when he was injured. Well, how many chances do you really have when you can't be on the field? I understand your best ability is your availability, and Anthony Richardson has not been available. So if you lose your job because you've been injured and there's a clear and obvious better choice, then sorry, that happens welcome to the National Football League. I just think the Colts mismanaged and misstepped every single step of the way with Anthony Richardson, and now they find themselves in a place where their best option is Daniel Jones. That doesn't mean it's a good one. And I think at this point, it's fair to ask how many games the Colts can actually win. That if they can win a few games, 9, 10 games, and make the playoffs, then sure, Daniel Jones might be your bridge quarterback until you find your next guy. But if he's not, then that's the path to a top 5 pick and finding your quarterback of the future. So maybe it's not the worst path in the world. It just feels icky to say that your best path is Daniel Jones.
I think what's happened here, though, is that this is what we do with quarterbacks. We get so dialed in on like what we think of that player, but come on, everybody laughed at one point that Sam Darnold was going to be a quarterback of a franchise. Everybody laughed at the Buccaneers for picking up Baker Mayfield. Everybody laughed at the time at the Seattle Seahawks for picking up Geno Smith. Like, this is an almost annual tradition of quarterbacks that have bounce backs, right? And so maybe I'm being too optimistic, but the fact is, this Colts team was in contention in Anthony Richardson's first year with Gardner Minshew at the quarterback position. I watched Gardner Minshew as a Raiders fan last year. Ain't no way your team should be in contention with Gardner Minshew as a quarterback, but they were. And then they go into last year and they get this weird combination of Flacco and Anthony Richardson that never took off. In fact, they were in playoff positioning until their quarterback play took them out of that at the end of the season last year. This is a team that we talk about like they're a disaster. They went 8-9. They were in the playoff hunt. So if I'm looking around as a coaching staff, I no longer give a damn about Anthony Richardson's development if he doesn't look good enough day in and day out of practice. If he's not doing the things he's got to do in practice, Daniel Jones might not be a great option. They may not think he is. But if they look around and think he's even just the tiniest better, just the littlest portion better than Anthony Richardson, well, damn, you almost made the playoffs last year. You owe it to every other person on that 53-man roster to put the best you got out there. And the best you got this year, it's clearly Daniel Jones. So I think what we've done is two things. We've overhyped Anthony Richardson because of some of the highlight plays that we all loved in college football. And the things like Dan Orlovsky said smartly, that there are certain things you can't teach, and he has them. We all agree with that. But if he hasn't put those together, and now you've got this person over here, Daniel Jones, that we've just decided stinks. We just decided we didn't like where he was drafted either. We didn't like it when he got paid. We've created narratives on Daniel Jones. So all of a sudden we're letting those narratives battle, when in fact, right now it's really simple. Daniel Jones this year in practice better than Anthony Richardson, which means when you were 8-9, and frankly, I think the Colts can and will win the division with Daniel Jones. I think that's why you have to play Daniel Jones. You can't win the division with Anthony Richardson. You got a shot at it with Daniel Jones.
But Fitz, these aren't narratives about Daniel Jones. This is real. Like, it is reality. It is what happened, and it's what we've seen from Daniel Jones. And look, with Anthony Richardson and everything that we've heard about him, obviously he took himself out of a game. We've heard that he is the last one in and the first one out. That maybe with those things that we've heard, maybe Anthony Richardson never would have worked out as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Maybe if he sat on the bench for 2 years, he still wouldn't have been able to progress or show signs that he could be a starter in this league. I don't know. Like, sure, that could be in a different world, in a different timeline, could be in the realm of possibility. But my point is, we're never going to get that opportunity to know if he for sure could have worked out or not, because the Colts got impatient and just went ahead and wanted to start him, even when it was so clear and obvious to all of us that that shouldn't have been a possibility. But here is my thing with Daniel Jones. You talk about, the reclamation projects that we've seen, Geno Smith and Sam Darnold. Well, for every Geno Smith and Sam Darnold, we have a Justin Fields. He went to the Steelers and showed us, no, maybe it wasn't the Bears, maybe it was just him. Russell Wilson post his time in Seattle. Denver sells the farm for Russell Wilson, and he very, very early showed that, hey, that was a bad deal. So yes, that there can be guys, and I hope for Daniel Jones, and I hope for the Indianapolis Colts franchise that Daniel Jones is that next Sam Darnold and Geno Smith. But just because it happened in the past, and just because we've seen it almost every single year, doesn't mean that Daniel Jones is going to be that guy. Maybe he just is what he is, a bridge quarterback and probably a high quality backup.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you that it's not easy to have a ton of faith in Daniel Jones, but I still think back to the year a couple of years ago, he threw for 3,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 5 picks, 67% completion percentage that year. He did all of that in a year that the Giants were basically forced into paying him because of his playoff success as well. That's something to me, and I still believe in Shane Steichen. I believe Shane Steichen can get the most out of his quarterback. We're just getting started as we figure out everything that's going on in the wild, wild AFC South. Coming up, all of this love for the Colts, maybe. Who else should we be paying attention to in the division? We'll break it down next on Yahoo Sports Daily.
Who'd you go with breakout player for the Jags?
I went with Trevor Lawrence.
Hell yeah.
I think he could be like a breakout player this year, truly establish himself as somebody that nobody's making jokes about anymore. He's an accepted good starting quarterback.
The things that he does well are the stuff that's hard. Avoid sacks, pocket movement, yada, yada, yada. And then it's just kind of his first couple of years, he had a whole bunch of red zone turnovers, which was super frustrating. It's like, why are you doing that? You forget how young he is. You're like, okay, he'll work out of that. I've always just been a fan because it's hard stuff he does, but he does have to work on consistency.
Nate Tice and Matt Harmon from Football 301, particularly optimistic about the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can check that show out, by the way, on the Yahoo Sports Network. Obviously, great work from them. We'll get to the Jags in a second. So let's have a little bit of fun here, Caroline. Fenton and Jason Fitz on Yahoo Sports Daily. Let's take a look at some optimism or pessimism. So optimist or pessimist. We're going to go through the AFC South, and we're going to give a scenario each, all right? So we are going to pre-design who gets what scenario and make the argument. So one of us will give the best case scenario. One of us will give the worst case scenario, which means one of us are going to be loved by fan bases. The other, not so much. Let's go through the South.
That's
Let's
fine.
We'll give you the Houston Texans, the 2025 Houston Texans, the reigning division champions. Caroline Fenton, give us your optimist approach on this one.
I mean, yes, CJ Stroud had a little bit of regression in his sophomore season. We call it the sophomore slump for a reason. But we saw so much talent from CJ Stroud in his rookie year that I can't believe that year 3 he has another regression. I mean, the Houston Texans were riddled with injury last season. If they come back this year and they're 100% healthy and CJ Stroud has his entire receiving core, then why not? Especially in a division that is stinky, at least on paper, from what we know right now. In my opinion, the AFC South, I think, is the worst division in the league, probably second only to the NFC South, and that is not saying very much. But I think that despite being in a really bad division, I love CJ Stroud. They're going to be back and going to be healthy, at least ideally, for a majority of a 17-game season. So I think just CJ Stroud alone gives me so much optimism for what this Texans team can be.
Which, by the way, you're right to have. Also, just for what it's worth, there are 2 Caroline Fentonisms that I've stolen into my life. One is I'm not going to yuck your yum, say it all the time now. The other is stinky.
Love it.
I was called out by a friend last night for calling something stinky, and he said, "You're a grown man that just said that's stinky. So thank you very much. Speaking of
Sometimes
stinky,
there's
I've
just
got a
no
division-
word that better describes something than just, it's worse than bad. It's stinky.
You are right. It's jarring for people to hear, which is going to be my stinky pessimistic take for the Texans. Look, I think if you're talking worst case, I'll give you, or best case, I'll give you worst case. That's simple. The worst case here is that the injury bug is actually part of their culture now. They're going to fight that moving forward, kind of like San Francisco has. Their offensive line just has question marks everywhere, which means their young superstar quarterback is just going to get hammered over and over and over again. You combine that with the fact that, what does their running back room look like health-wise and age-wise going forward? A little bit of a question there. Less dynamic on the offense. Before you know it, we got the Texans like, look, if the worst-case scenario for your team that I can drum up is that everything goes wrong and you still win 17 in 7 games, you're winning. You're living on the right side. That's where I am on the Texans. But that is a worst-case scenario where they're, 7-10, and at the end of the year, we're sitting here screaming about, well, is C.J. Stroud really him? Like, all of these overreactions that will come based on the things that are around C.J. Stroud. That's my worst case.
Is it crazy to think that a 7-10 Texans team could still win the AFC South?
Oh, man. We are throwing shade all over this division. Like, that is not
I'm just saying. I don't mean to be a hater, but I'm just trying to be realistic here. And of course, we'll get throughout the rest of the division. I don't have the highest hopes for the rest of this team, or the rest of the teams in this division. I believe way too much in CJ Stroud, and I believe way too much in what he did his rookie season. And I'm just gonna I'm going to hold on to that. But that's our thoughts on the Texans. What are your thoughts? Your optimistic view. I will give you the glass half full, and I will take over the glass half empty as far as the Jacksonville Jaguars are concerned. What is your optimistic view, Fitzy?
Look, I just want to start off by saying that just giving this optimistic view makes me a total fraud. Anyone that's listening to Inside Coverage knows that I am I have questions about the Jags, but the assignment is to be polypositive, and I shall do that right now. I'm good at that. Okay, so here's the easy part of it. Liam Cohen turns out is Sean McVay too, right? Like all of the time that he spent working with offensive minds across college football, the NFL, and then even with Baker last year translates. He finally finds the right way to get through to Trevor Lawrence. And what do you know? The minute that happens, all of a sudden, a team that is stacked at all skill positions, that just has explosive playmakers, is an offense that nobody wants to deal with. I think, you start to think about what this division looks like, what this offense could look like. The defense is a little bit better. I mean, why not win the division for the Jags? The optimistic view here is that you get the best out of Trevor Lawrence. And to be very clear, if anyone can ever unlock the cheat code of Trevor Lawrence, he has all of the ability in the world to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So now you're telling me some of the best explosive young players with one of the best quarterbacks, you're going to win some games. If Liam Cohen is somewhere between Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, boom, all of a sudden Jags win in the division.
Well, yeah, duh. If he's somewhere between Kyle Shanahan and
optimistic.
Sean McVay, like, duh, of course. But the question is he? And you say if the defense is just a little bit better. Well, yeah, a little bit better would still be 27th worst in the league. I mean, the Jags defense was 31st in the league last year. So even if they do improve, which I fully expect them to improve as long as Travis Hunter is taking snaps to the cornerback position, because that's how much I believe in Travis Hunter. But even a little bit better is still really bad compared to what they were last year. And look, Liam Cohen, sure. Could he be the next coming of Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan? Sure, absolutely. I don't trust coordinators as head coaches when they come from a system with a play calling head coach. And I think that's a lack of trust that I have in Brian Callahan with the Tennessee Titans. Zach Taylor calls the offensive plays in Cincinnati. Brian Callahan comes over from as the offensive coordinator in Cincinnati to Tennessee. And now I think he has the best odds to be the first coach fired in the National Football League this season. Doesn't mean that he's going to, but I think that just shows a lack of trust that we all as football fans have in Brian Callahan's ability to be a head coach. And look, Liam Cohen probably ends up being a better coordinator than he does a head coach, if I'm at least going to take a pessimistic view of the Jacksonville Jaguars. If they don't work out this season, they don't win the division this season, if they're not even the second best team in the division, I think it shows that Liam Cohen is a better coordinator than he is head coach. There's a laundry list of head coaches that are better coordinators than they were coaches. Cam Cameron, I think, is a great example. Your guy, Josh McDaniels, another great example.
Oh, not my guy.
That's
not
your guy.
My guy.
Nope,
he shall not be my guy.
You love him. You love Josh. I'm just kidding. And look, I think the biggest thing here is maybe Trevor Lawrence just isn't the guy that we thought he was. I feel like we just keep waiting for Trevor Lawrence to break through and to be that guy. When he was drafted, I thought Trevor Lawrence was going to be in the same conversation as the Josh Allens and the Patrick Mahomes and the Lamar Jacksons. And the reality is, he's just not those guys. And frankly, he hasn't really been anything close to those guys. He has been wildly inconsistent. And we now, I think, have enough of a sample size of Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback to say maybe he is more of an average Joe than he is an elite quarterback. So, all of those things combined, my question marks about Liam Cohen, what I feel like we know about Trevor Lawrence, but we don't want to accept. I can't be too high on this Jags team.
Let me ask you a Trevor Lawrence question here, because
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Our producer, Mike Goldfarb, who's done a great job since day one, absolutely love working with him. He asked us just a random question in conversation a couple of days ago as we were connecting. He said, "Who's your favorite band?" And that's just a normal get to know you question, right?
Yeah.
And as Mike and I were talking about it, I said the hard part is that most of the time you fall in love with the band because they have this one great record, right? And you love this one great record. But then as you get older, they put out more records that just kind of stink, right? And so what do? Like my first concert was Bon Jovi, and like those old Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet, New Jersey, these days, like 3 of my favorite records of all time. But then they put out like 5 or 6 records that just, frankly, they suck. They're terrible. So when people say, well, are they your favorite band? I gotta account for the fact that they put out a bunch of records that are really terrible. What do we do with Trevor Lawrence, who I was on the sideline, covering college football when people were saying he should sue the league so that he's allowed into the league early, because there's just no way he's the next John Elway every single time. We had that expectation. We've seen that body of work. But also, I'm sort of at that point where I don't care about that anymore. I don't care who he was coming in. I don't care what the expectation was. I don't care about the little flashes of brilliance. Like, the best quarterbacks in the NFL are the quarterbacks that you can bank on week in and week out being consistently great. We have not seen consistently great from Trevor Lawrence, and that's not a hot take. That's a fair take. So, like, I'm at that spot where I feel like Trevor Lawrence is a band that's put out some bad records, and now I just have to reanalyze what I think of Trevor Lawrence. Like, what if Trevor Lawrence just isn't him, even if we thought coming into the league he was going to be? At some point, we have to accept the body of work we've actually seen, Caroline.
I think the way that collectively as a football society we feel about Trevor Lawrence is similar to Justin Herbert, that we feel like they should be better. We feel like they should have done more based off of hype or based off of projections in college, but they just haven't come to fruition for whatever reasons. And you can come up with a million different reasons for both Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence of why they didn't work out. I mean, the Urban Meyer of it all in Trevor Lawrence's rookie season, and there's we need a full 2-hour show, maybe tomorrow, to talk about everything that went wrong with Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. And you can talk about injuries. You can talk about inconsistency of pieces around them, and whatever reasons you want to point to justify why these quarterbacks haven't come to fruition how we expected them to. The truth remains they just haven't come to fruition the way that we expected them to. And at what point are we going to stop holding our breath and we just realize, look, this guy just isn't as good as we thought he was going to be? But it doesn't mean he's bad by any means. I think there's probably 10 teams in the National Football League that would take Trevor Lawrence's services over what they have. I think the Tennessee Titans would take Trevor Lawrence over, the hope in the potential of Cam Ward, the Jets, the Browns, the New Orleans Saints. There's several teams that are stuck in the Colts. I would throw them in there as well. There's so many teams that are stuck in quarterback purgatory that would take Trevor Lawrence over what they have. But I think there's more than half of the league that are good with what they have over Trevor Lawrence. And 4 years ago, the thought of half of the league having quarterbacks better than Trevor Lawrence was inconceivable.
I'm going to give you the inconceivable task now of being positive about the Tennessee Titans, the one team in the division we haven't touched on at all. I'll give you the floor, my friend. Good luck.
Yes. So I do like to think of myself as a fairly glass half full person. I like to have a very optimistic view on the world. I like to trust people first before I don't trust them. And even with that, I had a hard time trying to find reasons for optimism for the Tennessee Titans. And look, I covered this team for 4 years. I'm close to this team. I know the ins and outs of this team. Of course, I've been removed for a couple of years, but still, My optimistic view is that despite an organization of dysfunction, despite an organization that doesn't have an identity and doesn't seem like they have a plan, Cam Ward can rise above all of it. That sometimes there are prospects and quarterbacks that can overcome dysfunction. Joe Burrow, for example, the Cincinnati Bengals were an organization that was the butt of every single joke in the National Football League. They hadn't won anything, they hadn't done anything. Joe Burrow comes in, all of a sudden, year 2, they're in the Super Bowl because Joe Burrow was just that good. Maybe Cam Ward is that kind of guy, and we just don't realize it yet. Maybe Cam Ward is such a fantastic quarterback and leader that he can overcome all of the shortcomings of the Tennessee Titans. Did I convince you? Did that feel good? Did that anybody buy it? I'm convincing myself.
You convinced me even more that you're just a kind-hearted person. Look, I am neither an optimist nor a pessimist. I'm a realist at my core, which is why football seasons rarely shock me or disappoint me, because I just sort of always take the very, very clean line on this. So when I was asked for the worst-case scenario for the Titans, I'm going to be honest for you. Easiest assignment I got all day. Look, the worst case scenario here is that the Titans, we find out, as I think we've already seen, haven't put enough weapons around Cam Ward to take advantage of him. And then we just circle October 19th on your calendar. That's when the Patriots come to town to take on the Titans. The worst case scenario here is that Mike Vrabel comes in with New England and kicks the ever-loving you-know-what out of the Titans. And all of a sudden, the next day, Amy Adams Strunk, all in her feels, fires Callahan. He's the first coach gone on October 20th. He's out of a job. The Titans are figuring out who's going to be running the organization. They're going to have to bring in a quarterback whisperer coach to get the best out of Cam Ward. And we're living the Chicago situation without a Ben Johnson to come in and be hopeful for. And all of a sudden, the revolving door continues for the Titans. And in 3 years, when we're trying to figure out why Cam Ward didn't develop, it's because the franchise blew it and everything's gone to you-know-what. Titans sit with the top 5 draft pick. I think I did the assignment pretty well. Like, that's the worst-case scenario for the Titans. And I'm sorry, Titans fans, because, I mean, I lived in Nashville for more than 20 years. While I'm not a Titans fan, I am friends of fans who are. I would love for the Titans to be good. That's fine. That's fine. They're not going to be. I got the easier assignment than Caroline did. We'll continue to break down some of the best and worst case scenarios. But one thing I know in college football, if you don't win a championship, you just claim one. One of the most storied franchises in college football did something shocking yesterday. We'll tell you about it next. News. Auburn has officially claimed 4 more college football national championships, adding 1910, 1914, 1958, and 2004. So the Tigers are now saying they are a 9-time college football national champion. It's Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I am Jason Fitz. I don't know. I feel like I always say this. I feel like it's Oprah. You get a car. You get a car. You got a like Auburn went in yesterday and like, we'll take a championship. We'll take it. It was like a Black Friday sale on the championships, and they're just going out day after Thanksgiving and buying them all half price. This is wild to me. I'll use 2004 as a note for Pope because most of us listening and watching don't remember 1910, 1914, probably 1958. But in 2004,
speak for yourself. It was
Auburn
a riveting year.
I am the old person on this show. Auburn finished number 2 that year. They did not play in the BCS championship game, but they finished number 2 that year. But the number 1, the title went to USC. That title was vacated by the NCAA because of the Reggie Bush stuff. And all of a sudden you end up with Auburn saying, well, we finished number 2, therefore we shall take a title. I am stunned, Caroline, to see this from a program like Auburn.
I actually recently just claimed a Miss America title and an Olympic gold medal. So that is how you may now introduce me every time we open up the show. Thank you so much. It was really so much hard work, and I'm really proud. That's how silly you sound, Auburn. And that's my biggest thing here is we are talking about Auburn football with a storied history, with a long history of greatness, of championships, SEC championships. We are talking about one of the most reputable programs in the entire country. You're better than this. You are better, Auburn, than UCFing your way into more national championships. And of course, I'm talking about UCF, who just claimed a national championship because they had an undefeated regular season but didn't get into the college football playoff. Like, these are make-believe fairy tale national championships. You don't get to just wake up one day and say, I feel like having 4 more national championships today. That's not how this works. Now, in 2004, obviously, USC had to vacate that national championship. They beat Oklahoma in the national championship that year. But just because that win is vacated does not mean it's up for grabs. It doesn't mean that you can just say all of a sudden you won it. It means in the record books, in the history books, it basically just never happened. Now, of course, we all remember that 2004 year. It was Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush and those great USC teams that were celebrities in the city of Los Angeles. So you don't get to just act like you won it. You don't get to just put that year up in your stadium and say, yep, we won it because we feel like we should have because we were second in the BCS in the AP voting. That it's embarrassing, frankly, and it's kind of pathetic. And Auburn is so much better than just claiming some of these fairy tale national championships. And it just kind of, I think, stains their reputation and just kind of questions the integrity of the entire reason why we do all of this, Fitz. Auburn is so much better than that. I have so much more respect for this program for them to be acting in this way.
Look, at the end of the day, Auburn has made themselves a laughingstock right now. And if you're an Auburn fan, you can't even fight that. Like, now you're in the same conversation as UCF. Good God. Like, this is not, you can't give yourself a nickname in life. You're not allowed to give yourself a nickname. You can't walk into a gym, tell everybody, hey, I've decided what like, people have to give you a nickname. You also can't give yourself a national championship. There is a process here. If they really think because the title was vacated that they should be named the champion, then I think they should go to the NCAA and see if the NCAA wanted to name them. If the NCAA had come out and said, you know what, because of the vacation of the 2004 national championship, we're going to now give that to Auburn. Like in the Olympics, if somebody loses a gold, they have the right to go out and then give that gold to the silver final. They could do all these things. Fine. If the NCAA had come out yesterday and said, we're giving Auburn the 2004 NCAA championship, we would have laughed, but we would have laughed at the NCAA. Instead, we're laughing at Auburn. And this is the sort of thing you don't do when you're a serious program. This speaks to the fact Auburn right now is just absolutely scratching and crawling at relevance. Auburn, like, that's stunning to me. Can you imagine, Caroline, how it will feel when everyone's sitting in the stadium and suddenly you realize they're about to put banners up for these things? Like, they're really going to do that? That is such an insult to the actual teams that they've had that were worth celebrating. This is that moment that you do this when you don't belong with the big boys and you're trying to convince the world that you do. I never thought Auburn would fall to this level, and it's embarrassing for the fans, for the coaches, for the boosters, for the players. It's embarrassing for everybody around this. The only thing Auburn can hope is that we'll forget in 5 years that they just claimed these things, and then maybe they can get away with it. But until then, every other fan base, rightfully so right now, is laughing and pointing their finger at Auburn.
I mean, I remember a time when Auburn actually was winning national championships, not just picking them out of thin air. And again, I have so much respect for this Auburn football program because they have such a storied history. It's been a rough few years for Auburn football. It's been, frankly, kind of an embarrassing few years for Auburn football. I mean, Gus Malzahn won a lot of games, but they didn't win enough. He didn't win enough, apparently. He didn't beat Alabama enough, and Auburn wanted more. Auburn got greedy. So Auburn cut ties with Gus Malzahn, and they brought in a guy named Brian Harsin, who drug Auburn's reputation through the mud. And then they bring in Hugh Freeze, which was kind of a joke in and of itself. But Auburn still hasn't been able to recover. Even bringing in Hugh Freeze that beat Alabama when he was at Ole Miss, couldn't even beat Vanderbilt last season. Couldn't even beat New Mexico State the year before. Again, we're talking about Auburn. I went to LSU. I used to be terrified of the Auburn game every single year because Auburn had one of the best defenses in the country, and Auburn was always a tough out. Now I look at Auburn on a majority of schedules, not just my alma maters, but schedules across the SEC, and Auburn's not an automatic fat red L on their opponent's schedule like it used to be. Now it's kind of like, can Auburn make a bowl game? And so it's not just these national championships, these phony national championships that are embarrassing. It's just the next layer of embarrassing things in a series of embarrassing, unfortunate events that Auburn has been going through since Brian Harsin took over and since they cut ties with the Gus Bus. And frankly, Fitz, I don't know if I see much more room for optimism for this 2025 Auburn squad. I mean, look, Jackson Arnold comes in, and if you forgot, Jackson Arnold was a transfer from Oklahoma. When he committed to Oklahoma, he was the golden boy. He was supposed to be the next great one, right? The next Kyler Murray and the next Baker Mayfield. He was a 5-star recruit. Everyone in the state of Oklahoma was buzzing about Jackson Arnold. Then he comes in, and it really wasn't that great. Oklahoma really struggled this past season. So there's a lot of thought and a lot of hope that, well, Auburn has been a franchise that has been without a quarterback. And Hugh Freeze has been a coach, a quarterback whisperer that's just been without a legitimate starting quarterback. And maybe Jackson Arnold just needed a fresh start. He needed to get away from all of the buzz and all of the hype and all of the pressure that came from Oklahoma. So it would be fair to think that maybe this is the perfect fit. Maybe this is the perfect match. A team that needed a quarterback and a quarterback that needed a team. And I hope for Jackson Arnold and this Auburn team that I have so much respect for, the history of this program, I hope for their sake that it's the perfect match. I just can't put my money on that, Fitzy.
I am right now looking at the CFP final rankings of Auburn year by year since the year 2000. They've only finished the season as a top 10 ranked team twice, it looks like. Twice in all of this. So you start looking at this, and look, I understand if you go all the way back to 2010, they had some finishes there. You know, they've had obviously the number 1 finish, number 2 finish. That's it. So you look at the record over the last 25 years. When's the last time Auburn was really relevant for anything other than when they play Alabama? Like, just
forget a top 10 finish, Fitz. How many times, let's just say since 2010, has Auburn won more than 8 games?
Yeah, since 2010, they've won more than 8 games twice. So quick look, they've won 8 games.
Wait, that's fewer times than I thought. In the last 15 years, they've won 8 games or more twice?
Yeah. So since 2010, in 2010, they were 14-0, obviously. That was the big year. And since then, they have a 12-2 and a 10-4 and a 9-4. Sorry, I missed that one. So they have 3 times that they've finished with more than 8 wins in that process. Like, all of this speaks to who Auburn really is. Like, if we're being fair, Auburn is a team that had a moment. And just like Nebraska was absolutely everything to college football fans in the 80s and 90s, and it's fair to admit that Nebraska used to mean everything, and now Nebraska is just sort of all we talk about is the lore of old Nebraska. That's where Auburn is at this point. Auburn at this point is just a forgotten program that at one point in time, a very brief point in time, was dominant in the national conscience. Since then, truly, the most incredible thing that most people currently remember Auburn for, other than Cam Newton, is the kick 6. Like, they need Alabama to prop them up
what
to
a
even
great
be part of the
moment.
conversation. Yes.
One of the great moments in college football.
An all-time great moment. But I fear that, we talk all the time about college football expansion and what it means. Auburn is one of the programs I do reference when I say all the time that the middle of these conferences are going to be left behind. We're going to forget about Auburn. We're going to forget about Wisconsin ever being good, Nebraska being good. Like, these teams that are stuck in the middle of the Big Ten, in the middle of the SEC, are going to have a once every 10-year shot at the college football playoff, and they're just going to be forgotten. We're going to spend the next 10 years talking about who Auburn was for a brief period. And I think when you actually look at the history books, that brief period, especially for anyone that's under the age of 25, like, what is your big allure to Auburn right now? Because they haven't really been part of the national consciousness by the end of the season at all for most of the last 15 years.
And it is crazy because Auburn attracts so much talent. I mean, they have a receiver now, Cam Williams, that was, excuse me, his name escapes me. Apologies. Cam Coleman, I believe his name is. He was more highly recruited than Ryan Williams at Alabama. You guys remember Ryan Williams last year, that incredible ballerina gazelle-like catch against Georgia, projected to be, rightfully so, one of the best receivers in all of college football. And Kim Coleman was recruited even more than Ryan Williams was. It's not like it's a lack of talent up and down. It's just been mismanagement from the top. It's been hiring the wrong coaches. It's been a string of moments that falls below what my expectation for Auburn really is. And my expectation for Auburn is, look, you're in the conversation at least for an SEC championship every year. But there have been far more times than not that they have actually been that.
Well, tomorrow we have Jay Busby coming on. He'll talk about the Auburn-Bama rivalry. Just wrote a book on it that's absolutely great. He also happens to be on the grounds at the PGA Tour Championship in Eastlake. We'll get him to preview that as well. You don't want to miss that tomorrow. In the meantime, coming up, we got plenty to get to here, including post-game press conferences that you can actually go to as a fan. Yeah, I'm not even making that up. Yahoo Sports Daily. We'll tell you about it next. Oklahoma is selling fans tickets to post-game press conferences. 2 seats for the September 6th game versus Michigan cost nearly $700, part of the Sooner Magic Memories program that lets fans buy unique game day experiences. Yahoo Sports Daily, Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz. And Caroline, I think a couple of things. One, this speaks to the fact that college football programs are trying to get clever and how they continue to raise money. You and I have had the very, very, very incredible fortune to get to sit in a lot of these post-game press conferences. I think you and I might admit, if you were at like True Serum, that maybe they're not the most exciting thing, but also, my God, if a fan, like if a fan could turn around, an Oklahoma fan could turn around and say, yeah, $700, I get to go to the press conference, there are a lot of them that will fight to do that.
If somebody wants to pay me $700 for my press pass to go to the post-game press conference, like, please, by all means. In fact, I'll give you a discount, $650. Like, it's all yours. I never want to take for granted like all of the wonderful privileges that are afforded to us as media members. But if I had a dollar for the number of times that I said, I don't want to go to this press conference. I've been working all day. I'm exhausted. It's hot outside, and the chairs in the room aren't very comfortable. I'd probably have enough dollars to actually pay to go to one of these myself. I do think that this is clever, though. I think Oklahoma has really been on the cutting edge in college football of bringing this program into the new era. The amount of personnel that they have brought in to be general managers to kind of form their own quote unquote front office, because now that college football is resembling, at least the business of college football is resembling the NFL more and more and more. You're starting to see staffs resemble the NFL more and more. There are general managers now. There's, a different group that is in charge of recruiting. There's a different group that is in charge of fundraising. That now the job of a college football coach has grown to be so much more than just the X's and O's. Now that's like a tiny part of it. Now you have to delegate some of these roles, and Oklahoma has done a really great job of collecting a very talented staff. I'll give them so much credit for that. I think Tennessee has done a really great job of finding creative ways to fundraise and to raise money. Pilot, the gas station, is now a sponsor of the stadium, so that's naming rights money that they get. That they put a 4% tax on season ticket holder tickets because it's what they call a talent fee that'll go straight into the collective and straight into NIL fundraising. So I think this is just like the next thing of how in the world can we scrounge up a few more dollars and cents here so we can start paying players more and more and more. This is another opportunity. I just want to hear, what a fan would ask Brent Venables after a game. Hey, Brent, you just got blown out 56-0. What's your favorite color?
Yeah. Oh my God. Let's help them. Let's give some questions that we can ask some of the big name coaches, especially if we were putting fan clothes on, because let's be honest, fans can get away with asking things the rest of us couldn't. Caroline, give me a question that you think, putting you in any first post-game press conference of the year. What do you go?
I think I would start with Kalen DeBoer. I would inject him first with truth serum before I asked this awfully bold question. But I would say, in hindsight, did you really realize what you were getting yourself into? Like, did you really know what taking over for a Nick Saban would be like? I've never would want to be the guy after the guy, and Kalen DeBoer is the guy after the man, the greatest to ever do it. So he says he knew what he was getting into. He says he knew that he was, embracing one of the most difficult roles in college football. But after Alabama fans obliterated him for the hoodie that he wore on the sidelines after losing to Vanderbilt, did he really know what he was getting himself into taking over the job at Alabama?
See, the problem is you injected him with truth serum. So his answer would be, hey, y'all, did you see the money? That's just a lot of money, and I took all of the money, and I'm running with it. Okay, I'll give you one, but look, I got to put a fan hat on, and I got to put like a fan polo, because in case people don't realize this, if I ask these types of questions, they just would revoke my media pass. There are certain things certain places you can't go, but if I'm putting my fan hat on, I'm walking into USC, I'm walking up to Lincoln Riley, and I'm like, hey, Link, maybe I'm going to call him Link, Big Link. Hey, Big Link.
Hey, Lincoln Log.
Leaving Oklahoma? Yeah, you still feel good about that decision to leave Oklahoma now, buddy? Like, look, this thing at USC, not only USC's worse than bad, they're irrelevant. Like, there are people that literally will look at you and say, oh, I forgot they're in the Big Ten. We forgot what conference USC is in? Like, that's how much the national conversation has died off on USC because of Lincoln Riley. So, Caroline, I just want to go up to Link and be like, hey, he's not Big Link. So, yeah, I like your Lincoln Log. What up, dude? You still feel good about leaving Oklahoma? And just see what he says.
He had 1 10-win year and then 7-5, 6-6 to follow that up when he's making a cajillion dollars when USC bought him out of his Oklahoma contract and they bought him a nice little house over there in Los Angeles. Ooh, I don't know if we want to ask Lincoln Riley that or if we want to ask the USC brass. Like, do you really feel good about your decision to do that? I am going over to the Big 12. We'll stay on the West Coast, though. I want to ask Deion Sanders, our good old friend Coach Prime. Now, there's a million things I could probably ask Deion Sanders, but if I'm injecting him with truth serum, I have to know, which side of the ball does he think Travis Hunter is better on? Because Liam Cohen at the Jags said he's going to be on offense. Liam Cohen's an offensive guy. I think he's a better corner than he is wide receiver, which again, he's still, was a Biletnikoff finalist. He still was one of the best wide receivers in all of college football. But Coach Prime coached him. He knows Travis Hunter maybe better than anybody. He calls Travis Hunter his son. So where's he better? Where should he play in the NFL? And does he actually think that you can play on both sides of the ball? He says he thinks he can, but does he actually believe it?
I just love that you asked Coach Prime a question, because what you know is you're going to get a religious experience out of the answer. Like, no man handles the press conference more engagingly. Like, the minute he starts speaking, we're all just sitting back. We're like, yes, yeah, I'll walk into that room.
I'll buckle my seatbelt.
You can walk into the room convinced the only thing you'll ever eat is steak, and walk out of that room a vegan if Deion tells you to be that way. That's just, he can walk you into anything. I'm just saying,
so
okay,
true.
You've asked real professional questions. I'm again going to, now I'm putting a full disguise on and a hoodie so that I can never get back into a room again. And I'm going to a North Carolina presser so I can talk to Bill B if his girlfriend lets me. And then as I walk into the press conference, his girlfriend lets me, I say, hey, Bill B, yo, considering you can only win a national championship with Brady, or win a championship with Brady as your quarterback, did you try to see if you could get him some NCAA ability, eligibility? Maybe we try to bring Tom back. Like, yeah, throwing a little shade at Bill B just to see how he reacts. Like, this college football version of Bill, I just want to see, is he as terse? Is he as court with everybody? And also throw a little shade reminding him that, ever since he didn't have Brady, he didn't have a championship. I'm throwing shade on the greatest of all time. That's what I'm doing with my press conference question, Caroline. That's why Yahoo doesn't send me to press conferences.
Yeah, hey, Bill, do you acknowledge that your greatness was only because of your quarterback? Oh, wait, listen, thanks so much.
I'll see myself out. Thank you. I'll watch the replay on ESPN. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to get a running start. How did you meet your girlfriend, Bill? Everyone says it's on a plane. Is that the truth?
God. Oh,
is that
God.
real? Bill? Billy? William? Whatever you want to call him? No, I love that. And honestly, I might be one of those people that spends $700 on a North Carolina press conference just to get the Bill Belichick experience. But my last question, if I had the opportunity, I would ask Sharon Moore. How much harder is it to coach in college football when you don't have the other team's signals? Because whenever Connor Stallions went away, Michigan didn't have a great season. So I don't know. Is it that much harder? And this is my favorite tweet to ever come out of this past year. Where's that little bald nerd that gives us all the answers? When you don't have that little bald nerd anymore, all of a sudden it's much more difficult to win football games.
That is the mic drop of all questions from Caroline Fenton. Absolutely. A pen drop, though, because we can't drop the mics and still host a show. That's fair. And also a reminder that the bosses are watching this, and now neither of us is going to get a press conference invite for this show anytime soon. All right, hour number 2 coming up next. Plenty to get into, including what's the latest with the Cowboys and Micah. We'll tell you next. Welcome back to hour number 2 of Yahoo Sports Daily. And again, we want to say hey to everybody that's watching us on fast channels. We're out there on TV now, yahoosports.tv. You can hang out with us. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We have a massive hour to get to. So, Caroline, let's start the hour like we always do. 3 points. What is on your mind, my friend?
Absolutely. Let's get into it. It feels like it's the summer of hold-ins in the National Football League because we have yet another one, and it's over really before I even knew it began. Steelers defensive tackle Cam Hayward wants a new deal, and starting about 2 weeks ago, he started holding in for said new deal. But as of yesterday, that hold-in ended. He put the pads on, and he returned to practice. But Adam Schefter did report that there's no new news or no momentum toward that new deal. So why head back to practice only 10 days in? Frankly, I didn't even know that Cam Hayward was holding in until I saw the news that he ended his hold in. So what changed there? Is there actually momentum that's being made on the contract? And, maybe reports are just a little bit old and there is momentum that's being made. Maybe Cam Hayward recognized, hey, it's my 36-year-old season. I just got a new deal last year. Maybe I don't have as much leverage as I really thought I did. Maybe Cam Hayward looked at it and said, hey, I want more money. I get it. So do I. Everybody wants more money. But it's more important to me to play week 1 than it is to hold in for a new deal. So I'm going to go back to practice as we continue to have talks about a new deal. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but the truth remains Cam Hayward is back at practice, but all reports say he is still looking for a new deal. But as of right now, what we do know, no new news on that new deal quite yet.
Yeah, he's back on the practice field. Let's see what happens for week 1 if he doesn't get some of that money turned into guarantees, which is what it appears he wants. All right, speaking of player movement and hold-ins, let's get to my first point, and this is interesting to me. The Minnesota Vikings are open to trading for a veteran wide receiver. Why is that interesting? Well, as we see Tom Pelissero's report right there, that they're seriously exploring veteran receivers in the trade market. I don't know, guys, can anybody think of Oh, yeah, Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin is still not going to be participating with the Washington Commanders as he looks for money that inside coverage told you seemed drastic when his team first told Washington what they're expecting. So now you know that you got a guy that wants to get paid, right? And he's going to find somewhere that he can get that cash. And the Vikings are in a situation where between the injury to Rondell Moore, the issues with Jordan Addison that will cause him to miss some time, and the fact that Minnesota accepts they are in win now mode. Also, they're in win now mode with the quarterback that has played 0 regular season football games. So how do you help your young quarterback? You give him all the help you can possibly find. This makes total sense for Minnesota to be in the market. The question is, how far in the market are they? Now, this is where everybody will tell me salary cap ramifications, blah, 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 blah. That's all funny money. They can work it out if they want to work it out. If they want to bring in Terry McLaurin, they can. The real question is, do the Washington Commanders want to help the Minnesota Vikings get one step closer to a Super Bowl and make themselves one step worse in their own division? I don't know the answer to that. Should also be noted that apparently the Jets are in the market for a veteran wide receiver as well. A little bit of question there on why the Jets would be in the market for a veteran wide receiver when they're not going to be very good this year. Far different situation, but it is a reminder that Terry McLaurin has a market somewhere. And you see that Vikings image right there. I would love to see Terry McLaurin with the Minnesota Vikings simply because it gives a player that has dedicated everything he has to bad football teams the opportunity to go out and win at the highest possible level and do it with one of the best in the game right now in Justin Jefferson. That is a match made in heaven. Somehow the football gods need to make it happen. Which brings us to my final point, our final point, Caroline Fenton. It's a day, which means we've got to have an update on negotiations. Adam Schefter is tweeting yesterday about the Cowboys and Micah Parsons. And the tweet that he put up yesterday said that they are, in his belief, headed for a divorce. Monday night during Monday Night Football, Aikman said he believes Micah has all the leverage, saying they can't win without him. Is this really at some point you've got to look at Shefty saying they're headed for divorce and wonder, do we really believe that they're not going to be together? There's the Aikman tweet saying, I do think the Cowboys are going to be better than what a lot of people project. I don't think anybody knows what Jerry is ever going to do. Caroline, are we concerned about Shefty coming out saying that they're headed for divorce?
I mean, Troy Aikman saying that about Jerry Jones. I mean, I don't know how many current or former Cowboys have the best, most glowing things to say about Jerry Jones going through negotiations. But to your question, do I believe that? No, I don't believe that. I have never believed that there was a world where Micah Parsons would not be a Cowboy this year or moving forward. But this Adam Schefter tweet, I think, is interesting. And one thing that I have learned is when you have reporters and insiders putting things out, you always have to ask, where is this coming from and who are their sources? Now, insiders will never give their sources out, nor should they. That's their livelihood. Those are their relationships. But where is this coming from and what is the motivation behind it? Reporters' jobs are to report things that they are being told. I think that this is Micah Parsons' people using the leverage that they have. And the leverage that Micah Parsons has is the media, social media. I think that Adam Schefter sources, now this is based off of zero knowledge whatsoever, but I think that this is coming from Micah Parsons' people trying to stir up buzz, trying to create a sense of urgency, to say that, look, they're headed for divorce, to maybe push the Dallas Cowboys to sign this deal and to get this all over with sooner rather than later. Because if there are Cowboys fans, if there's social media, if there's talk shows like ours that are talking about a potential divorce between Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones, there's going to be pandemonium. It's going to be an all-out frenzy. And so maybe that is Micah Parsons' people's way of using the leverage and using the public and using reporters as their resources, which is used. People use the media to get their bottom line pushed forward. It's not the first time. It happens all the time. Maybe this is their way to kind of push things along a little bit when the leverage, really the only leverage that exists for Micah Parsons is holding in. Clearly that hasn't done anything. And the media.
So an agent friend of mine years ago said, if you figure out who benefits from anything that's leaked, you'll know who leaked it. And to your point, you think about where there's any benefit in this. Well, the only benefit you get is now you've got teams that are calling Adam Schefter, and Schefty's a longtime friend of mine and somebody that, has told me repeatedly, when you put things out, people call, right? So now what you have are other teams reaching out to Schefty saying, hey, you really think that's going to happen? What do you think it's going to take? That's also something that's real. Like, there are teams that reach out to insiders all over the place and say, what do you think? Like, do you have a sense of what they're looking for? To your point, the only person that benefits from this, well, there's two. I guess you could say Jerry benefits a little bit from the conversation, and Micah benefits from maybe a team will call and say, here's a home run offer. Will you at least listen to it? But the thing for me is that, Caroline, I still believe it's impossible, literally impossible for these two people not to be together this year. And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, the Cowboys own the rights for Micah and can simply force him to play, right? There is no leverage here. Micah has no leverage in my mind. Number two, and this is where you say, well, he'll sit out, and that's his leverage. Okay, and he'll get fined every week that he sits out, and now a millionaire will play chicken with a billionaire. That just doesn't make any sense to me. You rarely win in that game. But the other part of this is, like, I do believe that Jerry Jones loves the publicity, and I don't think it's an accident right now that there's a new Netflix show dropping about the Dallas Cowboys, and we're talking about the Dallas Cowboys every day. I mean, what better promo for a new show about the gambler that owns the Dallas Cowboys and all the risks he's taken in his career? What better promo for that very show than watching him go through a negotiation like this wildly publicly? Like, I feel like since we started working together in the last 2 weeks, I've had to qualify a million times that I'm not a conspiracy theorist, because I'm not. The logic stacks.
The more you say it fits, the more and more I have to wonder.
Am I becoming one? Because I'm sitting here thinking, like, my God, he and Micah probably already have the deal done. And it's like, hey, just hang out. Take the time in the summer. We don't want to wear your body down. We'll come up with the deal. I really want the promo of this. So, like, let's just keep the things going. I just want to believe this is like pro wrestling in the 80s. And, like, an evil tag team is laughing at all of us while we react to something that isn't real at all. It's all going to get done. I think there's literally a zero chance that Micah Parsons is not a Dallas Cowboy this year. And we will look back at the end of all of this and say, why did we waste our time and our breath and our energy on it?
I bet my house and your house that Micah Parsons was going to be a Dallas Cowboy next year. And I don't want you to be homeless. I don't either. I don't want either of us to be. I like our houses.
Do we move in with Goldfarb? Is that we move in with producer Mike if we lose our houses, right? Like, That's the way that works.
Yeah, that would actually make our morning shows so much easier. We can just do in-person
Yeah.
meetings. Mike, we apologize,
West Coast.
just
It's
in
West Coast.
advance
We'll
if we
just-
do have to
we'll
move
just
in
text
with
you, hit over
you.
it. It's
And
perfect.
I like fresh fruit in the mornings. I like my orange
Wow.
juice with pulp. Just write that down. But yeah, I think that's how steadfast I was in my belief, and still am in my belief, that Micah Parsons will be a Dallas Cowboy. And I believe that the only reason why this deal is not done is because Jerry Jones is like Tinkerbell. If Jerry Jones doesn't get the spotlight, he will die. He needs it. He needs the headlines. He needs the spotlight. He needs the conversation to be all about him. And what does not signing Michael Parsons to a deal until the middle of September do? And it creates headlines about the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones is a brilliant businessman. He turned $1 million team into a $1 billion team, into the most successful and valuable franchise in American sports. But he's not a brilliant general manager. So this is what he's doing. It's a business decision. It's a business decision for him to pay the extra tax that it would take to sign Micah Parsons after Myles Garrett and TJ Watt and Max Crosby. What it will cost him to sign Micah Parsons in September versus 2 years ago is worth it tenfold for all of the publicity that his Cowboys are getting. Old Jera. It's not a brilliant idea, but it's an idea.
It's not a bad idea. I mean, when is the last time a superstar player actually left the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones just said, nah? And I feel like since I got into this business, I've been doing this for almost 10 years at this point. Since I got into this business, I've lived through oh my God, they're never going to sign Zeke. He's in Cabo. Like, he's not even with the team. What'd they do? They signed Zeke to a ton of money. Then I went through the absolute stupid takes people had about, the Cowboys actually don't want Dak. And if you talk to any reporter around them, the answer was, yeah, they want him. They want him for as long as possible. What they can't agree on is how long the deal should be, because the Cowboys want more of Dak. But nobody wanted to listen to that. We all wanted it to make Jerry's an idiot. And now we're doing the same thing. To your point, is this the smartest way to have spent money? No. If you study the salary cap, it's not. But also, I'm not here to tell Jerry Jones how to spend his money. I don't really care about that. The issue here is Micah Parsons going to be a Dallas Cowboy? And the answer to that in my mind is just, it's yes. And it's been yes the whole way. So now to your point, Caroline, maybe it's bad football business, but it's brilliant overall. It's brilliant marketing business.
It's brilliant media business.
Like this is, the Cowboys are, when you talk about success, we hear this all the time. I haven't won a Super Bowl since the 90s. Correct. They haven't won a Super Bowl since the 90s. And we talk about them like they're the Patriots just coming off a dynastic run. We talk about them like they're the Chiefs in the middle of a run. We talk about them. We talk about the Cowboys more than the Eagles, who have won a couple of Super Bowls in the last few years, are a better team. They're better run. The Philadelphia Eagles do literally everything better than the Dallas Cowboys. And we talk more about the Cowboys. Like, as much as we want to talk about Jerry's failings, he's managed to make a mid-level NFL franchise that doesn't deserve attention the spectacle of the NFL. That in and of itself is brilliant.
You can't say he's not a brilliant business person. Does he do football business well? No. Is he a good football general manager? Yeah, probably not. But again, how much did Jerry Jones buy the Cowboys for? A couple $100 million. They're worth what now? Couple $100 billion. It's news when the Cowboys are bad. It's news when the Cowboys are good. It's news when the Cowboys don't do anything. And it's news when the Cowboys do anything. That is a masterclass in brand building.
Yeah, there's no, I don't think anybody monetarily has been more important to the modern NFL, including Roger Goodell, everybody else, than Jerry Jones. It just happens to be at the expense of any greatness from the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, speaking of not so great, the AFC South, not so great, but we'll break down the Colts quarterback decision. Could it be the difference maker for him? We'll tell you next.
Yeah, I think he's a veteran guy that's been around the block and seen a few things, and seeing how he interacts with his teammates and how they've taken to him and how he's taken to them. I think he's done a really nice job, and I think the guys are excited for his opportunity. He's proven that. I think the behind-the-scenes stuff that people don't see with Daniel Jones is his work ethic, the way he connects with his teammates, the operational stuff, like I said at the start of this thing, in the huddle, the communication, the checks, all that. And I think we got a good group around him. Overall, our football team, offensively, the weapons we have, that I feel that he can be successful in it.
That's Colts head coach Shane Steichen talking about the decision to start Daniel Jones. We're going to get some expertise on it right now on Yahoo Sports Daily. James Boyd joining us. He covers the Colts for The Athletic. He's also the co-host of the Fan Morning Show on 107.5 in Indianapolis. James, appreciate you joining the show, man, especially as busy as you. The bat phone is ringing off the hook for Colts coverage right now. So I'll just start you with the very simple question. Was this the right decision by the Colts?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I would say if you're in Shane Steichen's shoes and you believe this guy can win you games, then yes. However, if you're the fan base out here, I think they're thinking, why are we doing this again with the retread quarterback, considering that every single year you all tell us this is the answer and it turns out not to be. I mean, outside of Phillip Rivers, usually the one-year stopgap quarterback has not worked out well for this franchise. So it's an interesting situation for sure. And I wasn't surprised either way it would have won. I can see both sides of it, but it certainly feels like this team has given up on Anthony Richardson no matter what they actually say about not giving up on him.
And that's exactly my question for you. He is 23 years old. I mean, he started 13 games in college. He's had very limited reps in the NFL in the last 3 years. Did the Colts and have the Colts given up on Anthony Richardson too soon?
That's a great question. I honestly do think that internally they believe there's a future here for Anthony Richardson. That's what they'll tell us. And my pushback to that is then what is the plan? Because the plan is he hasn't played, a lot in college, 13 games, hasn't played a lot in NFL, 15 games due to injuries and being benched. But beyond that, how does he develop or get better? And how do you sell him on that? I had a chance to ask Anthony Richardson yesterday, do you have faith in this franchise helping you develop in the future? And he responded and said, I have faith in God. And I was like, oh man, like I'm getting taken to church by Anthony Richardson. So that was a very, I think, poignant comment from Anthony, and something that you can't necessarily smooth over or gloss over, because we're essentially asking you, do you want to be here? His answer is, well, I'm here for right now.
And that's kind of my biggest question with the Colts is, okay, Daniel Jones is the starter this year, but what's the plan over the next couple of years? I want to look back over the last few years. What is the local perception with how the Colts have managed Anthony Richardson since drafting him with the top 5 pick?
I think early on, there was obviously excitement. You see some of the physical stuff that he can do. He is certainly one of the 1% athletes I've been around. And ironically enough, I actually ran into him at the Jim Irsay YMCA here downtown in Indianapolis, right before he signed his rookie deal with the team. Played pickup basketball with him, and he is a freak athlete. I mean, through the legs don'ts, and I was guarding him, and I was terrified because I was like, if this guy sprains his ankle near me, I'm going to be public enemy number one. But neither here nor there, when it comes to Anthony, the excitement has kind of tapered off because of the injuries. And I think beyond the injury standpoint, this fan base feels like, well, what did you all do to prep him or help him get ready? You all said last year when you benched him for Joe Flacco, his preparation that wasn't correct. Well, how come you didn't scout that? How come you didn't see that in your evaluation of him? You told us he was a good leader. He was a hard worker. And then you came back and said, well, actually, he doesn't work hard enough. He isn't, the best leader so far. So which one is it? So a lot of trust, I think, is eroded between this fan base and the front office and the people that make decisions on the future of this team. And so it is a bit tense right now. And I would honestly say the fan base the majority of them are against the decision to start Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. But I mean, the guy hasn't done himself a lot of favors either because of the injuries, being benched and obviously just not playing well when he is in there.
So I think it's interesting, James. I was even watching Get Up this morning, and the part of their discourse was that, well, the Colts suck, so why are they doing this? I struggle there because Shane Steichen in 2 years went 9-8, and last year went 8-9. Like, this feels like this is a team in playoff contention. Are we sort of wrong on where we're placing the Colts in the lexicon of this entire thing?
Yeah, I think so. And that is the frustration of the fan base. They're like, you know what? We'd rather stick with Anthony Richardson. And if he's awful, is what it is. We'll get a top 5 pick. But they also aren't in the shoes of the GM and the coach whose jobs are on the line with these decisions. And the understanding that I have from Shane Steichen and others in that building is that they believe if we get steady quarterback play, we can be a playoff team. We could possibly go on a run. Now, I'm not saying I believe that. I mean, I've seen Daniel Jones's resume, and it is not good. He has one good year in his career, but that is what they believe. They believe we just get steady play, a guy who doesn't turn the ball over, someone we can rely on to be in there week in and week out, then perhaps we do have a chance to win the division and make it into the playoffs. And quite frankly, it's been right there for them every year. It's just that the quarterback position, more than any other, like most teams, is holding them back.
You bring up Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. One of the most shocking stats to me is that since Chris Ballard took over, both all three of the Texans, the Titans, and the Jags have won the division. All three of them have also had a top pick in the draft, and the Colts have never won the division. Shane Steichen obviously takes over a couple of years ago. How hot are their respective seats?
I think it is hot. And to give you, a bit of a more just how ridiculous it's been in the AFC South, they've won, each team during the Chris Ballard era has won it twice. So they've, won it with one guy, bottomed out, and then won it again. And so that's how, unique the situation here is in Indianapolis. And I can go on and on. They haven't won a season opener since 2013. They haven't won the division since 2014. That'd be the Jaguars in Duval County since I don't know when. Like, there's certain things that they just can't do, it seems like. But with the decision to start Daniel Jones, I believe both of their seats, Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard, just got a lot hotter because you're essentially saying we're willing to punt on our future with a guy we drafted number 4 overall 2 years ago, who was the highest drafted pick they had since Andrew Luck. He was supposed to be your guy, your final answer. Okay, we've been doing this retread quarterback thing. We're finally going to draft our guy. He's going to be our long-term answer for the first time since Andrew Luck walked away. You haven't found that, and you're punting on that for 1 year of Daniel Jones. And if that 1 year isn't fruitful, I think that everyone, as far as their jobs, their tenure should be on the line, because at that point, you're looking in the mirror saying, what did we do it for if we didn't, at minimum, make the playoffs?
We also have to remember Jim Irsay passed away, right? And so now you have a team that is going to be run by his daughters. How much does ownership change sort of put pressure on everybody in the organization?
I think there's certainly a significant amount of pressure. And Carly Irsay Gordon, the eldest of the Irsay daughters, who's now the principal owner of the team, she'll handle more of the football operational stuff. I think that she came right out, in her press conference after her father passed and said, Shane and Chris, that is, they know they haven't been good enough. They know we haven't won enough, and we have to get back to a standard of greatness. And so the impression I got from her is that this will not be a gap year to mourn, to feel sorry for ourselves, to transition. She wants to win now. And I think, just bluntly, most owners would have moved on from Chris Ballard by now. I mean, through his first 8 seasons, he has, 2 playoff berths, 1 playoff win, and 0 division titles. That's not a resume that you usually bring back. And that's not a GM usually gets a chance after chance to pick the quarterback. So just being honest, I do not think that the daughters are as, beholden to him as Jim Irsay was. Jim Irsay compared Chris Ballard to Michael Jordan during the 2022 season. And keep in mind, Chris Ballard hasn't won anything. Michael Jordan has won 6 championships in the NBA. He's considered the GOAT of basketball. So that, to me, kind of gives you a little bit of how the late Jim Irsay operated, but also how things might change here in the near future.
Is there a feeling of optimism for Daniel Jones based off of what maybe you have seen or what you've heard from listeners of your radio show and from Colts fans? What's the optimism for Daniel Jones? Do we think that he could potentially be that Sam Darnold, Geno Smith reclamation project of this season in the NFL?
They believe that. Personally, I do not believe that. I just think that you can't get too caught up in the redemptive stories, because there's many guys, as we know, that change teams. They don't become the redemptive story. We don't hear about it because it just isn't that case. But for Daniel Jones to give you a positive spin, I do think there is, if he's a competitor, he has to be thinking, I came here to win this job. I've won it now. This is an opportunity for me to prove not only to the Colts, but to the rest of the NFL, I am a starter. And most quarterbacks, they don't get that opportunity, a few months, half a year, less than a year, than when they just got benched. And so I think he's actually benefited from not playing a lot of football. And people have kind of forgotten how bad it was in New York. So now he gets a chance to have a fresh start with, I believe, a better infrastructure than he had with the Giants. He has, plenty of skill position players to help him out. The offensive line is a little bit in question because there's some new faces there, but the Colts believe that if we give him better opportunities, better weapons around him, he can be a better player for us.
Do you believe the Colts will look to trade Anthony Richardson?
I do not. I do not think that they will trade him this season. And honestly, I think for his sake, his best option will be to stay in Indianapolis for this year. And now what happens after this year, I'm not sure. But I do think, just looking at the way the NFL is now, even last year, you'll have a chance probably to play this year. Most starting quarterbacks don't play all 17 games. We saw that last year with the majority of teams having to play at least one other quarterback. So for Anthony, he has to think that I have an opportunity to, possibly see the field again in the same offense that I was, grew up in and kind of developed into throughout my first 2 years in this league. So going into my third year, yes, it might stink for me right now, but you have to think that you're one play away from being back on the field.
You guys can read him on The Athletic, listen to him on 107.5 in Indianapolis in the mornings. James, really appreciate you, as busy as you are right now, taking the time to hang out with us, my friend. Thanks so much.
I appreciate it. Yeah, a lot of talking these days, but always grateful to do it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, James. Appreciate you.
All right, you have a good
trade
one.
question, Caroline, comes up in part because, look, the Saints, a great example. Kellen Moore has made it clear that the Saints have not named a starting quarterback yet. And we've seen the Tyler Shuck experiment so far and hasn't looked particularly good. So I think what happens is every time we see a team with a hole at the quarterback position, we're going to want to assign Anthony Richardson to it. It's just, and I don't know, it's a tough trade to make financially. The amount of time you have before you do the fifth-year option, like all of these things on Anthony Richardson, for better or for worse, I think Anthony's sort of stuck, but so is a team like the Saints.
But the Saints kind of knew they were going to be stuck, right? Did they not expect to not be totally floored with this quarterback room? I mean, it's Jake Hayner, Tyler Shuck, and Spencer Rattler. They're not any less thrilling than they were in April when the Saints were still in a position where they didn't have a quarterback. So I don't believe that you can add a fourth non-starter in the NFL into a quarterback room with no starter in it and expect to be better, right? Like, what are you going to add poop on top of poop and expect that to be a cupcake? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Unless Kellen Moore looks at Anthony Richardson. Thank you. Unless Kellen Moore looks at Anthony Richardson and says what I have said so many times in my life, I can fix him. I can work with this. I can fix him. And I think that would be a pretty tough sell to the Saints front office, given what I'm sure Indianapolis is going to ask for Anthony Richardson. Because just because Anthony Richardson is a backup doesn't mean that he is all of a sudden no longer a fourth-round pick. If there are people picking up the phone to call the Colts about a trade for Anthony Richardson, the Colts don't have to do that right now. So unless there's a trade that absolutely blows them away, they're not going to do it. And if you are the Saints or really any other team in the National Football League, why would you put together a trade package that blows the Colts away when we don't even really know what Anthony Richardson is?
Yeah, the best case scenario here would be a conditional draft pick of some sort. Like, I don't think the market's going to be, I hate this. I think Anthony Richardson is stuck. And I think the Saints knew they were going to suck anyway. So they're ready for that. Anthony Richardson is just stuck where he is. And then he'll just have to continue to hope that he gets reps this year and see how it plays out moving forward. Obviously, keep you updated with any more breaking news. It feels like every day on this show, there's plenty of it. But in the meantime, we got some NBA news we want to get to. John Wall announced his retirement yesterday. We'll get some perspective on it from one of our favorites next on Yahoo Sports Daily. At his best, before all the injuries, a truly breathtaking player, a lightning bolt in transition, a brilliant passer with incredible court vision, a dude who played with the kind of confidence that could make you believe in anything, even the Wizards. Happy trails, John Wall. That from Dan Devine, talking about the John Wall retirement from one Dan to another. We're doing the Dan Band today. We'll go from Dan Devine to Dan Titus joining us on Yahoo Sports Daily. Dan, appreciate your time. Give me just like your first, when I say John Wall, you say.
When you say John Wall, I think of explosiveness. I think of one of the best point guards of the 2010 era. And, when John Wall retired yesterday, the first thing that I did was go back to his days when he was in high school, because I think one of the things about John Wall's legacy that hasn't been talked about enough is how much he meant to building a player's brand before you actually step on the court in college or the NBA. And, aside from generational talents like LeBron James, who have always been behind the machine, he was really instrumental in helping to usher in that mixtape era of basketball. And, if you went to YouTube in the 2010s, like it was him, he paved the way for Zion Williamson, Austin Rivers, all of these guys to really highlight and showcase what it was like to be a young prospect coming up in the league. And he used that viral moment to really set the stage for how kids would be consuming basketball. And now look what we're doing, House of Highlights, Instagram, all this was very formative under the John Wall era. And I think he was on the Mount Rushmore of hoops mixtape. So that was probably the first memory that I had of him, but it didn't stop there. He had those viral moments throughout his career. I mean, he pretty much he brought the Dougie to mainstream. I mean, for his time in Kentucky to when he got drafted, this guy's always been a showman, and I think you always saw that in the way that he played. Unfortunately, he got hurt, and that's just the way of the game. We saw a lot of careers cut short. Grant Hill, Anthony Hardaway, but John Wall at his peak was a premier point guard in this league.
And an iconic song that kind of defined the first couple of years of my high school career, and of course, iconic dance as well. Of course, we'll remember so many great moments. Yeah, there it is. There it is. I'm not even going to try doing it. So many great moments, whether it was at Kentucky, his time in high school, or his time in the NBA. Is there one moment or moments that really stick out to you when you think John Wall?
Oh, man, he had this one 360 layup that he would do that, I've seen Vince Carter do that, in a dunk. I've seen Michael Jordan and Dwayne Wade do it. But the way that John Wall had those stylistic elements where he would do things that you see as like, oh, man, I don't know that I've seen that before, because I think he was such a crafty finisher with his left hand. And I think that was one of the things that really stood out to me when he was, coming up on the scene, was that he is so explosive, but he chooses to dunk on his offhand. So that's something that just stands out to me. But then also, I think he was one of the last ones that I can remember that was a bona fide star at his point in time that actually wanted to compete in the dunk contest. And he wound up winning in 2014. So I think we need to bring that back. Hopefully he can bring some of that energy and instill the importance of participating in such a monumentous event like the All-Star game used to be. Let's bring that energy back.
Anytime you have a signature move in 2K that everybody refers to involving a spin, you've done something right. I'm just saying, it's a video game nerd in me. All right, so then walk me through this. Help me with this, because I think one of the worst things about the way we cover the NBA now is everything has to be about championships, right? Like that's all the shows want to argue about. So what do we do with the player that clearly had greatness and clearly came in and impacted the league and changed the league and did all these things, but didn't win chips the way maybe some people hoped he would when he came into the league?
I think it's a great time to start celebrating the players. And, I think the first thing that I saw when John Wall announced his retirement, it was really great to see that he did it his own way. And not everyone's going to have the team around them to build a championship winning roster. And I think you can give John Wall a lot of respect because he ushered in a new foundation and culture for the Washington Wizards. He was drafted off the heels of the Javaris Crittenton and Gilbert Arenas incident that really was a black eye on the Washington Wizards. He then took a few years, rebuilt that roster along with Bradley Beal and others, and wound up making them a playoff contending team. That's a very hard thing to do. As young as he was, being a one and done out of Kentucky, he was pretty much a winner at all levels. And I think that you can actually take away something that John Wall was not only impactful in the box score, but, if we talk about his involvement in the hoop mixtape era, the mainstream crossover between basketball and hip hop with the teaching people how to Dougie. And honestly changing the Wizards roster for the 2010s and going forward, I think he had a very storied career that should absolutely be celebrated.
We could talk, I think, all day long about the impact that John Wall made on this game at the NBA level, at the college level, and he deserves that conversation. But since we have you, want to pick your brain on some other NBA topics that we've seen come down over the last couple of days. Rick Carlisle extended in Indiana. Your thoughts? Can he make something from not having Tyrese Halliburton this upcoming season?
That's been his MO, I feel like, over the second part of his coaching career. You know, when he started out in Detroit, kind of played a slow style. And then when he went to Dallas, he won Coach of the Year in Detroit, but then he went to Dallas, got his championship. But I think the thing that's most impressive about Rick Carlisle, and why I think this multi-year extension is so deserving, is his ability to connect with players in this era, but then also be able to adapt and change his style of play depending on the personnel. So you mentioned that Tyrese Halliburton is going to be out next season. I'm not counting this Indiana Pacers team out. Now, they may not make it to an Eastern Conference Finals like they've done like the last 2 years and an NBA Finals like last year, but they're still going to be very competitive. And I would take a look at Benedict Mathurin and Andrew Nembhard as being those two players that are really going to step up in Tyrese Halliburton's absence. I think there's a very Andrew Nembhard got an extension last year. And Benedict Mathurin is the one that's, I think, primed to step into that starting role and potentially take on a bigger role. And no better person to kind of instill that confidence in than Rick Carlisle, and the way he has the NBA now kind of, he's setting the trend for how the NBA is playing right now, along with the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's physical, it's fast, there's a lot of depth, and you're going to have to utilize your roster and really play through the trenches to figure out how to beat this team. And I think Rick Carlisle has done nothing but prove that he can adapt, win, and continue to develop really good players.
Yeah, echoing the sentiment we talked about before, that everybody wants the big three superstars to come into their team, but that's not the way modern NBA championships are won. I'm just saying. Okay, speaking of not the way things are done, maybe we should talk about a little bit of golf here. Crossover event we didn't know we needed in the form of LeBron's golf swing. I don't know if you've seen this, but one of the greatest in the world to do anything except for that, maybe. Like, Titus, what are we doing here? Like, and he walks off angry. Who's he? He should be angry at himself, Dan.
He's like, it's that damn wind. The wind did it.
The way that he was in that backswing, look at, he was hitting a dog leg serious left over there. I mean, as a guy that's approaching 40, I can relate to wanting to hit the links, and I'm glad that LeBron is finding this piece. I think this is pretty much, where he's at in his career. If he's like, yeah, I'm going to just go on the golf course. I totally see him enjoying a glass of vino, smoking a stogie and just hitting balls on the golf course. So this is great to see, but I think it's going to be a less of a learning curve for him to get his golf swing together than Charles Barkley. There's something you can work with there.
This is why I don't play golf. Like, we've got Barkley swing here. Like, this is why I don't play golf.
Oh,
like,
no.
No. These guys
Not the Jello
these are
legs.
great. What is it? They're great athletes, and this is what they get? Like, I don't know how I feel about any of this.
It's crazy. And to be honest, I'm not hardly a swing coach. I'm my handicap, I'm plus 20 here. But, if LeBron just keeps that front foot down a little bit, get a little bit more torque in that backswing, I think we'll have a little bit better results. But he's got plenty of time. This guy has he could hit up literally anyone in his phone to be like, help me on my golf swing. Steph Curry, J.R. Smith is now a professional golfer. So, yeah, he'll be better by next year, I'm sure.
I love that TikTok.
It's a good thing that
breakdown here.
Yeah, because all the golf experts on the TikTok, and hey, like we're just practicing for retirement here, and
exactly.
Look, I enjoy it. I love it. I do want to ask you that we're talking about LeBron. So much about Luka and the Lakers, and how Luka is the future of the Lakers, just signing his new contract, his new deal with the Lakers. What's LeBron's future? Like, what is his role now with the Lakers?
I think he's playing out the final year of his contract, and he sent some cryptic messages over the summer, over the offseason, and I don't know what his next destination is. It could be retirement. It could be possibly going to another team. But what we have seen and signaled from the Los Angeles Lakers, from their recent changing hands of their board of governors to them wanting to invest in Luka Doncic long-term, this is now Luka's team. And the one thing that we haven't seen in a lot of the destinations in LeBron's career is him playing second fiddle. He was the man when he was playing in Miami. He was the man when he went back to Cleveland. So This is going to be an interesting transition period, but I think that the Lakers are going to be a solid team, a championship contending team. That remains to be seen. But I think if Luka Doncic comes back healthy the way that he looks right now playing in Eurobasket for Slovenia, this team could actually make some noise that people don't expect. And, LeBron James, if he wants to take a step back, play second wheel, I think he could probably get it done. But we haven't seen it from him before. So I think this could probably be the last time we see LeBron James in a Lakers jersey.
LeBron's going to be great on 2K. The Lakers are going to be great on 2K. I've already admitted that I'm a video game geek. I need your expertise on this because Eamon Thompson's 2K rating. What does the video game see that the rest of us don't? Because my God, 87 overall. Now, look, he is, by the way, really hard to stop in the game. I will say, the game's always been a little bit inflated on him, but my 87, brother, what are we doing?
So I love you brought that up, Fitz, because I think ever since I've been playing 2K, and I'm a little rusty on the sticks, I got to be honest, but I feel like they always gas up these ratings on their initial takes. And for what we're seeing, for what 2K is seeing and what we're not seeing, is I think that they're anticipating Eamon Thompson taking this next level leap offensively because he's already one of the best defenders in the NBA, one of the most athletic. He's unstoppable when he has his head ahead of steam to the rim. And when you play the game, he dunks everything. So if I'm looking at the archetype of a basketball player and you see that list of names that he's ranked higher than, you got Tyler Hero, Tyrese Maxey, De'Aaron Fox, Austin Reeves. I think he fits that bill for the archetype of a basketball player that you want in a video game. The only thing he's missing is a three-point shot, but two ways, he can steal everything, he can dunk on everything. I'm not mad at the rating. It's just a bit too high, but everybody's ratings are a bit too high. And looking at the rest of that list, I think De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Maxey should be on the same level as Eamon Thompson. And the one good thing that 2K does is that as the season progresses, depending on a player's performance, they'll take that rating down a bit, or they'll push it up depending on how they're playing. So I think Eamon Thompson at 87, while rich, I see the vision of it. I think he could get to that level and maintain it, if not exceed it, in what's going to be a really monster year for him.
I just quickly have to tell you, Dan, if you are 40 and up and not as somebody that's almost 50, if you're 40 and up, if you're not rusty on the sticks, then something went wrong in your life. There just comes a point where you're I know, look, I used to play a lot of video games and make good money doing it. And now I embarrass every time I'm out there, I'm like, oh my God. And you'll play against somebody that's 20 and they're using they're faster. They're just fast. Look, we age out.
I'm getting waxed by 12-year-olds. I had to put the sticks down because I'm like, yo, I can't take this. These kids are yapping at me. I'm getting the pressure. I'm throwing my controller. Yeah, I'm crashing out completely on it.
I had to get
and the
rid of
youths
the
these days, their vocabulary, they don't even speak English. I don't even know what words they're using. They could totally be roasting you, and you have no idea because you don't even know what they're saying. They are.
They're saying it while they dunk on you, so you know that they're roasting.
So I just recently moved from Central Time Zone to Eastern Time Zone, and I'm adjusting to just operating on one less hour of sleep. Everything just starts that much later. Now we have NBA games tipping off at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. I'm a bit of a night owl, but even that is too late for me. Your thoughts on the new 11 o'clock tip-offs?
Got the wrong person to ask for this one because selfishly, I'm on the West Coast. So if you can push anything back a half hour, I'm with it. That is squarely in put the kid to bed range. And I'm like, hey, let me get back. Now I get an extra 30 minutes to do that. I'm feeling it. But for the rest of the country, that's brutal, especially for the Eastern Conference and, or the Eastern side of the country, because it's not like the best show isn't on the Western Conference anyway. The best teams are in the Western Division. So the fact that you're alienating the side of the country that, frankly, they're probably not going to be tuned in for many of those Eastern Conference games with the Celtics out of it, with Indiana, missing Tyrese Halliburton. Damian Lillard is also recovering from an injury now. He got traded to Portland, but it's just not the appeal of the Eastern Conference teams just isn't that great. So to push the West Coast teams back, I don't know. I feel like you'd want to get more eyes on the Thunder, the Houston Rockets, the Memphis Grizzlies, Denver Nuggets, Lakers, etc. So not great, but I think the bigger problem that I have about the NBA is if you guys saw that schedule release of what days you need to watch the NBA on which channel and what broadcast company or streaming service, it's pretty confusing. And if you're a cable cutter like I was, I'm like, dag, man, maybe I should have just kept the cable because this would have been much easier. Just flip a couple channels and get to my destination. Now I'm like, I got to log in here. I got to stream off of this. I got to get a subscription to that. It's a bit convoluted. So, yeah, I think that the NBA, obviously they had to get the bag. So I understand their decisions for what they did. But hopefully we can get this scheduling and ability to watch the games a little bit simpler for the end user.
What we're just going to do is every time there's a really late game that we need to talk about, we're just going to have you come back on the show and give us the tightest 20, like 20 seconds on that. Tell us what happened on it, and then we can hang out from there. That way, it's like you're our cheat code. We're just going to use you as our cheat code. By the way,
while you were
see the
sleeping,
QR code there. Yeah, I mean,
right. I love it. I love it.
We're doing that. We'll build a whole animation from the movie. Scan the QR code you see on your screen right there. That's how you can participate in all of our sports shows that are coming across the Yahoo Sports TV. You can also check out Dan's work across the Yahoo Sports app everywhere. Appreciate you, my friend. Thanks so much for hanging out with us this morning.
Thanks a lot, guys. This is awesome.
Thanks, Dan.
Speaking God's truth, by the way, like I finally had to take the headset off when I play video games because I realized that like that's an 11-year-old and I'm going to say something to an 11-year-old I shouldn't say to an 11-year-old because I'm an adult. And that's when you just realize that suddenly you can't play video games the way you used to. These are the things you have to look forward to, Caroline. Like it's not the aches, backs, and it's not the knees. It's realizing that you can no longer play video games at the right level.
That's not really a worry of mine. Not a good video, not a huge video game person. I did Nintendogs back in my day on my Nintendo DS, but I believe that those days are behind me, unfortunately. I am a watcher of a lot of the college football video game in my household, though. That's super riveting and very fun.
Yeah, well, that's
Kent State to the Natty. Let's go.
I'm staggeringly good at that one, too. So, I'm going to take him down. That's all I'm saying. Okay, coming up, we got baseball news. Expansion is on the horizon. Is it headed to Nashville? We'll answer that next. Yahoo Sports Daily. I think Nashville is almost a shoo-in to get an expansion team. That's Jeff Passan from ESPN talking about the future of the Major League Baseball expansion conversation and one city he thinks is almost destined to get a team. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily. A little bit of just a piece of knowledge because you guys might be watching us for the first time. I moved to Nashville in 1996 and lived there for 20 years. So it's a city I know incredibly well. Caroline Fenton, you lived in Nashville for many years yourself. We both worked in Nashville local media. We've covered this team, this city, and sports in this city. So there's a little bit of bias, but I will say Nashville's getting a baseball team, right?
No, no.
Oh.
If you are familiar with the movie Holes, there is a scene where there's a little girl who's digging up holes and she says, "I'm tired of this, Grandpa." And that's how I feel about the MLB to Nashville conversation. I'm tired of it because we have it every single summer. I did sports talk radio in Nashville for 4 years. And for 4 summers, all 4 summers that I was there, this was a topic of conversation. And it sounds great, right? Like, I love the idea, and I would die to have a Major League Baseball team in Nashville. There's so many baseball fans in the city of Nashville. But let's talk about the specifics here, okay? I lived in downtown Nashville. There's no room. It's full. It's at max capacity, okay? There's no room for a stadium, much less an entertainment district that goes along with the stadium. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Broadway, but that's quite the entertainment district in and of itself. But the idea is that the stadium has its own entertainment district, kind of like the Battery in Atlanta or Ballpark Village in St. Louis. There's no room for that. I promise you, there's no space at all for a stadium. The second thing is, the expansion fee for a Major League Baseball expansion team is valued around $2 billion with a B, $2 billion. The Titans' new stadium costs about $2.5 billion. So I would say that's about how much it would cost to build a Major League Baseball stadium as well, along with the cost for entertainment districts. So let's just round up and say $3 billion. Is that fair? So the expansion fee combined with what it would cost to build a new stadium, you're looking at $5 billion, probably at minimum. I don't know of anybody, Fitz, that has ties to the city of Nashville or anybody that would feel inclined enough to spend $5 billion on a Nashville baseball team. Look, Tim McGraw's got money. He ain't got that money. Luke Combs, Casey Musgraves, all of our favorite country music stars, they've got money. They don't have MLB expansion fee money. So it sounds fun. I love Nashville. I consider it my home. I love that city with all of my heart. I love baseball. I'm a diehard baseball fan. I would love this. It doesn't make any sense. And I don't see it happening.
So, look, I don't disagree, by the way. The Nashville Stars, I believe, is a group of people that have started selling caps, and we showed the hat a second ago. They're essentially, and I say this as gracefully as I can, but I don't really care. They're essentially a Ponzi scheme. They're selling gear. They're selling hats. They're selling a logo. They're selling all of these things, and they have absolutely nothing to back it up with. In fact, I've talked to people around Major League Baseball, including Jeff Passan, as we've looked at kind of will Nashville get a team for the last couple of years. And his comment over and over again has been the Major League Baseball owners, they want baseball in Nashville, but they do not believe in any ownership group currently attempting to get a team. To your point, like, great, you can sell some hats and make some money off of people. Where are you getting the billions? I know some country music artists that have been lucky enough in their career to make tens of millions of dollars that have been hit up by the Stars. Hey, let's all contribute. We're going to make this like a collective. To your point again, though, Caroline, you can't collective yourself to billions of dollars, even if you're talking to some of the biggest stars in country music. Like, it's not, there's not enough money to be given to get enough skin in the game to actually put a team there. That being said, I believe that Major League Baseball wants to be in Nashville. And that's where this really gets interesting to me. I grew up in Vegas, and I've lived in Nashville, two cities I know well. There are plenty of people around the Oakland A's, now Sacramento A's, whatever we're calling them, moving to Vegas A's, around Las Vegas, that do not believe the A's are actually ever going to play a game in Las Vegas. There are plenty of people that don't trust the funding in place to build just the stadium in Las Vegas. That speaks to the fact that this is far different than, let's say, NFL expansion. This is a very, very expensive initiative. I think Major League Baseball, though, is going to work hard to put the ownership groups together that they believe can actually sustain. I do not believe current ownership at all that's trying in Nashville will get a team. I think Major League Baseball wants a team there, and because of that, they'll find a group of billionaires and collectives that can come up with the cash, and there will be a Nashville baseball team. It's just going to take some time.
I do think that relocation could be probably a more feasible next step for a Major League Baseball team in Nashville, that the Chicago White Sox owner has threatened several times to relocate the team. Now that's more of ownership's problem and less of the city of Chicago, but that is a real thing. And if the Chicago White Sox relocated to Nashville, you're not paying that $2 billion expansion fee. You already have ownership and you already have investment. My problem, though, is, Fitz, you know Nashville, I know Nashville. The Titans are building their new stadium in the parking lot of the old stadium because that is the only place where it will fit. I don't see any space in downtown Nashville, and that's the allure of Nashville, right? You're close to Broadway, you're downtown, you're in the thick of things. I don't know of anywhere where a Major League Baseball stadium would fit alongside the minor league baseball stadium that already exists in downtown Nashville.
Yeah, and that stadium you mentioned for the Titans is being publicly funded for a lot of different reasons. I don't think the taxpayers are going to love the idea of also having to publicly fund a baseball stadium, which somebody like the White Sox would be looking for. We're looking for you guys to hang out with us every single day. If today was your first day, I'll remind you, we're here from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., Monday through Friday, Eastern time. We will be here. Thank you so much for everybody that watched for the first time on yahoosports.tv. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. More Yahoo Sports Daily coming tomorrow.